it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome our first guest for the second day of the conference, my colleague Merete Sanderhoff, who is an art historian, and she works at the SMK, Statens Museum for Kunst in Copenhagen, as curator and senior advisor in the field of digital museum practice. She was a chair of Europeana Network Association, and now she is an advisor to the EU Commission's expert group on digital cultural heritage and Europeana. And Merete will talk about how old collections inspire new creativity. Merete, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Alexandra, for this wonderful introduction. And I'm very, very happy to take part in this. I love the title of your conference. I think it's brilliant. Art is better with you. This is what it's all about. And I hope in my presentation in a moment that you'll see that this is exactly what we're working on at the National Gallery in Denmark. So I'll start my presentation and share my screen with you. So do you all see my slides?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the wonderful fact that digitization has brought about, that the collections that a lot of us working in museums are stewarding, that they have become, they have taken on a new significance in digital era, because they're not just now a resource, an experience that you can look at from a distance and enjoy with safety distances, but it's also become a toolbox. You already introduced me, Alexandra, so I'll skip this slide and go to our museum. This is the National Gallery of Denmark. Maybe some of you had visited it. I know some of you have. You're always welcome here. It holds a collection of Western art from medieval times to the present day, and a collection of around 250,000 artworks. And specifically, and of importance to my talk here, is that 2/3 of this collection is in the public domain, which means that the works are so old that all copyright has expired. And this has made it a really valuable asset for us to work with and for the public we serve. Since the first digital strategy that we wrote at SMK back in 2009, we promised ourselves and our users that we want to be a catalyst of users' creativity. And we are realizing that potential now in a multi-annual project that's actually coming to its conclusion next year, called SMK Open, where we try to open up SMK's digitized collections and knowledge for all to use and enjoy. You can go visit our online collection, which is at the heart of SMK Open. It is called opensmk.dk. I'm quite proud that our online collection is called Open. What we have tried to do in order to open up our collection is actually to try and democratize how you enter, 250,000 artworks. Okay, to be honest, we haven't digitized everything yet, but there's close to 100,000 works here. For the wider public, it can be very difficult to navigate such a big data set. How do you search? Do you know the artist's name, what to look for? So one of the things that we have introduced, inspired by many other great colleague museums around the world, is search by color. So you have this nice interface where you can just click a color that you like, and then you get artworks featuring that color. It's a very easy and playful way to look into an art collection. Another thing is that we have worked a lot with artificial intelligence, in fact, to add keyword tagging to our collection. The story behind that is that even though we're the biggest art museum in Denmark, we don't always have a big budget for digital. And one of the things that we have never had enough money to invest in is actually to have a lot of art historians sit down and do keyword tagging of the collection. And this inhibits an open-minded search into the collection, because you need to know an artist name or a date or an inventory number to find a specific artwork. And we really wanted to also democratize that part of the search. So with a combination of thesauri vocabularies and image recognition technology, we've been able to generate automatic keywords to the collection, so that the machine has learned to find, for instance, cats. A key element of our online collection is that these 2/3 of the collection that's free of copyright due to age has been marked public domain with the Creative Commons public domain dedication. And this is to signify that you are free to use the images, you can download them, you can take them, grab them, do whatever you like with them. And we try to make that very clear to our users. And the reasoning behind that is that we realize that museum people don't necessarily get the best ideas how to use the collections. We have a certain tunnel view due to our education, our training as art historians, what to look for in artworks, but other people with other approaches and other backgrounds, they get some great ideas that we wouldn't get ourselves. And we love to be surprised by what our audiences do with our collection. So the artwork I showed you just before in our online collection, this wonderful painting from 1901 by Wilhelm Hammershøi, an interior in Strandgade in Copenhagen, is public domain. And one of the things that it has been used for by one of our creative constituents out there is like a pop-up version of the painting with a motorized moving light behind the cutout window, so that the light changes as the motor moves the light. And in that way, the sunlight on the floor sort of shows whether it's night or day. So this is just one creative thing that has come out of opening up our collection. It's made by a Berlin-based artist and designer called Katzi Hübbe. Here she is presenting her remix at an exhibition in our galleries at SMK, where we placed her remix next to the original, because one of the things that we are very keen to show our users is that digitization doesn't just transform access to our online collection. It also transforms the kind of museum that we want to be. Being SMK Open is not just about opening up the online collection in technological terms. It's also very much about opening our minds and our ears to the public and listening to and being in dialogue about how the museum is relevant and has valuable experiences to offer in the 21st century. So along with opening up in this open access way comes a new role as facilitators for us museums. Here's sort of a graphic presentation of how we think of ourselves as facilitators in SMK Open. If you read it from left to right, we start with the public domain online collection. It consists of work photos, audio, metadata, video, articles, web pages, etc. And those things go out on our own web page. It goes into our API, our application programming interface, which is sort of the middle layer that enables not just us to use all this data in flexible ways, live updated, but also people everywhere who access our data in a structured way and can use them as building blocks. And for instance, external platforms like Wikipedia are big users of our data set. And then finally, all kinds of cool projects come out of opening up our data in this way. And I'll show you some of those in my talk. So basically, our work with opening up SMK is about democratization, as I already said. And we have a strategy that is currently our backbone as a public institution called SMK for All. And I'm going to read a little bit from the vision behind our strategy. Being the National Gallery and main art museum in Denmark, SMK carries an important responsibility towards the entire country and beyond. The vast collection of 700 years of art is common national property, and ideally, everyone who lives in Denmark share a sense of ownership to this unique cultural heritage. Our work is based on the conviction that the artworks in our rich collection has a role to play in the society that surrounds us through its ability to deepen our understanding of the world, its peoples and histories. We believe that the development museums have undergone in the past decades holds the key to engage far more and more different people than we reach today. So because we are the National Gallery, we're supposed to be for everyone. And digitization and opening up not just our digital resources, but also our ways of working with the surrounding world is a key to reach this vision. An important thing that we have learned, and I know that this is a shared learning in the museum and wider cultural sector in the digital era, is that digitization can easily overwhelm you. All the shiny new things you can do as a cultural institution can get the better of you, and it can be difficult to really understand how to serve real needs in your users and not just run after the next big technological hype. This is a picture I took myself during a user test of a Twitter-based app that we developed a couple of years ago in collaboration with a bunch of other Danish museums. And it goes to show very evidently that while our ambition with this app in the galleries was to help visitors get more knowledge about the artworks and have a dialogue with museum staff and each other. So having like a live conversation about the art they were looking at, as you can see in my snapshot, mostly it just, got a user's attention focused on their small screens, and that was not what we wanted to see. So this is how we learn, and this app is no longer in use, and we've moved on to other types of engagement. What we are coming to an understanding of is that we're sort of stretched between different poles in spectrum. We are classically, as museums, enlightenment institutions, knowledge-based, research-based, hoping to support an enlightened society. At the other end of the spectrum, we live in an experience economy where we have to fight to grab people's attention and and feel relevant and like the best offer around. We are also classically physical institutions with physical collections and buildings, but we also live in a digital era. The main point of my talk and the examples I'm going to give is that we see the most empowering and powerful engagement coming out of nearing the center of this intersection between enlightenment, experience, physical and digital. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples now of things that we've done where we feel like we succeeded in this. As I already mentioned, one of our really important communities working with our digitized collection is Wikipedia. It's the whole world's open platform for knowledge sharing. It's an encyclopedia incredibly created by volunteers all over the world. It has its flaws, it has its wiki wars, etc. But it's also quite a miracle in this day and age that such a big distributed platform of well-meaning people who want to share what they know is actually growing and becoming more and more established day by day. The idea of Wikilabs culture, as our community is called, is that we come together as a number of Danish cultural institutions with online collections, people from Wikimedia in Denmark, from the Danish Wikimedia chapter, and volunteers who like to share their knowledge about cultural history. And we have monthly meetups in the community at the different institutions that host this, where we help each other, teach each other how to use Wikipedia in the best possible way. And there's enormous reach on Wikipedia. This is just for SMK's digitized assets alone. We have, this generates 37 million page views per year. But more importantly, we are also, through this community, really helping shape Wikipedia in ways that are fruitful. I don't know if any of you have tried to work with Wikipedia or maybe have even edited articles yourself, but when it comes to the arts and culture topics on Wikipedia, often other editors think that this is kind of narrow knowledge. We've had quite some incidents where other Wikipedia editors have questioned, is this topic about, for instance, an 18th century female artist, is that relevant enough for the wider Wikipedia user community? And through establishing a strong community of cultural knowledge people, we are succeeding in also changing the attitudes of other Wikipedia editors in acknowledging that art and culture is an important topic to cover on Wikipedia. So this is one of the places where we see that a consistent community effort that builds a bridge between the digital sphere and physical meetups where we get to know each other and we really bond with the community, where we have an experience of having a good time together, becoming friends, becoming allies, while also working with knowledge sharing is a very strong bond. Another project that we're continuously working on is 3D scanning our collection. Among other things, we have in our huge collection a big section of plaster casts of masterpieces from antiquity to the 18th century. And a lot of this is in storage, as you can see here, and quite inaccessible to the public. And again, we are working with a volunteer community. It's called Scan the World. Maybe some of you know it. And as the name says, it's a community-driven effort to hand scan all of the cultural heritage in the world and make it available online. And John Beck, that you saw in this picture, he comes regularly to visit. He brings his scanner, and then he just works and works and works. And we support his travel and his stay. And then he's happy to help us because it's a mutual effort. We help him by giving him access to the collections that he is so ambitious to scan. And he helps us achieve something that we don't have resources and knowledge to do ourselves. And what is fascinating about providing 3D models is that there's also a demand for that from the public to do a lot of creative things. Of course, all of these scans are also in the public domain, so you can freely reuse them creatively. And this is just one of the things we've seen come out of it. It's a music video by a guy called Fatan Kana. It's the song is called The North Wind. And in it, he has placed a number of 3D scanned models from the SMK collection in a sultry winter landscape. And this is just a still, but they move around. It's very sort of eerie and has a fantastic atmosphere. And it's fascinating to see that these old plaster casts all of a sudden gain a new attraction to the right people out there. This is a fun project that came about a couple of years ago. It's also related to 3D. Shapeways is a platform for people who like to create 3D models. And then you can, through Shapeways, have your models printed and put on a marketplace, a bit like Etsy, but for 3D geeks. Shapeways knew that we had an open collection, and they contacted us and asked if we wanted to do a collection jewelry design contest with them, because they have a lot of jewelry designers in their community. We, of course, accepted. This was a fantastic idea. And we launched a contest where we asked the designers to be inspired by artworks in our collection to create new designs. And we have had hundreds of beautiful designs come in. And the winning design was inspired by this fantastic painting from 1532, Melancholia by Lucas Cranach the Elder, where the designers, it's a Milan-based design company called Three Different, two guys running this. They had designed a necklace based on the composition in the painting and turning it into a necklace printed in one piece, where you close the necklace by getting the ball through the hoop, as the three little putti are trying to do in Cranach's painting. To come back to this intersection of enlightenment experience, digital and physical, what we did to bring this digitally based contest, online based contest, into the physical museum was to create an exhibition in our main hall of the winning pieces. There was a winner and 4 runners-up. They were printed by Shapeways and sent to us. And here you see them. And we sold them in the museum shop. And then we had, at the launch, a nice meeting between, you can say, the traditional art historical knowledge and the creative approach, because we invited the designers, 3 Different, to meet our director to have a talk about different ways of interpreting and approaching a painting from the 16th century, with a very interested audience following. The final thing I'm going to talk about is also a long-standing community that we've had at SMK since 2006. It's called Young People's Art Labs. And again, it's a voluntary-based community of youngsters between 15 and 25 who meet each other at the museum once a week, facilitated by one of the museum interactive designers. And what they do together is to use the museum as a base to develop community outreach projects. It's a wonderful community, and we learn tons from engaging with our young users this way, hearing and learning what they think SMK can be used for. And here are a couple of examples. Back in 2013, there was a big metro construction going on in Copenhagen, and the Young People's Art Labs teamed up with the Copenhagen Metro Company to create a huge remix of artworks from the SMK collection to adorn one of the construction sites. And this was done in collaboration also with the people living around the construction site. They were quite frustrated about all the noise and the building hassle, but through being engaged in this creative project and taking part in remixing and choosing what images they wanted to see on this construction fence, also the people living by the construction site felt that their quality of everyday life was enhanced because they felt empowered. Another project is quite interesting. It was in 2015 where the art pilots teamed up with a drug injection room in central Copenhagen where drug users go to take their drugs in a safe manner. It's a very clinical space, like a doctor's appointment room or something normally. But what the art pilots did was to work with the drug users, sit down with them, talk with them about their dreams and life stories and how that was reflected in images from the collection. And they did a remix that would be sort of the wallpaper of the formerly very clinical, sterile rooms of the injection room. So it really changed the character of this place, making it much more personal and reflective of the people who use it. And also it brought SMK through the art pilots into a meaningful dialogue with people who probably would never visit the museum. Finally, there was a wonderful project we did with the art pilots in 2018. We have a democracy meeting for young people once a year called the Young People's Meeting. And the idea is through participation, dialogue, and community to help young people explore democratic citizenship. I'm going to be finished in a little while. Am I behind on time?
No, everything's perfect. You still
Great.
have 3 minutes.
I had a little bit lost track of time.
No worries, we're good.
To have what the art pilots did there was to organize what they called a taboo workshop. And this was done in collaboration with a number of NGOs who work with young people who have bumped into hardships in life. It can be eating disorders, it can be feeling of loneliness and depression, it can be cancer at a young age, drug abuse, etc. And what was common for these NGOs that help young people is that they all experienced how difficult it is to for the young people to express their problems through words. It's so tabooized to talk with each other about having an eating disorder or a drug problem, that often on top of having the problem, they also suffer from loneliness and isolation from each other. So the NGOs had learned that it's sometimes easier for youngsters to express themselves through images instead of words. So the taboo workshop was to break taboos through making the invisible, difficult feelings visible in images. And here you see the art pilots who helped develop and facilitate this workshop, and representatives of the different help organizations. As you can see, the workshop was outdoors. Luckily, the weather was good. It was in September. And we had so many participants who were interested in learning about breaking taboos. With students in the age of 15 to 19 years old, so like end of school and high school students. The workshop started with a session where we sat everyone down and then played an audio file with testimonies from young people who have physical or mental disorders. We did it with an audio file in order to protect the young people from having to stand up and tell a very difficult tabooized life story in front of 100 strangers. So instead we had pre-recorded them, and the art pilots, in collaboration with the NGOs, made the decision to anonymize what exactly the physical or mental disorder they suffered from was, and instead just let these youngsters tell their stories, because it also was a learning that whether you suffer from an eating disorder or cancer, the difficult feelings and emotions are very similar. It's a feeling of, I feel like I'm a burden to my family and friends. I feel like I'm messing everything up for everyone else. It's better if I wasn't here, etc. After having listened to these very powerful testimonies, the art pilots divided the youngsters, the participants, into smaller groups, and facilitated a workshop that was very hands-on, easy to approach, very physical, not at all digital and technical, just a lot of printouts from our collection, mixed with magazines, etc., glue stick, scissors, and just try and express in a remix collage some of the difficult emotions and problems they had been presented with in the testimonies. And the focus in this workshop was not on creating a nice picture, a finished product, but on having a dialogue, collaborating, and through this process, breaking taboos. And we did a big evaluation of this project that is also published online if any of you are interested, where, based on observation and interviews with participants, we tried to understand what kind of a difference it made for them to participate in this workshop. And here's one of the testimonies. It's easier for me to express my emotions through images or drawings, because then I don't have to explain everything. And then other people can make their own sense of it and relate to it in their own way. This was actually a participant who had been diagnosed with depression at a young age herself, she told us. Here's some other participants showing their collages. They're really imaginative and beautiful. And another testimony, it's like art changes character when you can touch it with your own hands. You're able to look at it up close. It means a lot to be able to hold the art between your hands and touch it. So in this workshop, we felt that we came a long way with breaking down this barrier that some people feel with museums, that they feel that they have to know certain things in advance. They have to keep a distance, not get too close. And here we tried to present our collection in a completely different way, where it was all about what's your interpretation of this? What's your take on this? Try to get close and personal with the artworks. I think actually when Lizzie Jongma, who's also speaking to you today, when she worked at the Rijksmuseum and did their whole online collection, that was a huge inspiration for us at SMK. And Lizzie helped us a lot in the process. And one of the things that was that they learned at the Rijksmuseum at the time was that it's very powerful when you can touch the art. If you can touch and remix artworks, you never forget them again, because you've been so close and you've made choices and selected parts of the artwork that you want to have in your collage. And that way the artwork becomes part of you. So here's the link to the impact case study we did about this specific project, if you're interested. And yeah, just to wrap up, I hope I've given you some examples of the kind of magic things that can happen if you try to work at the intersection of digital, physical knowledge and experience as cultural institutions in today's very digitally infused society. This is also, you know, my way of saying that I don't at all think we should leave behind our classic DNA as cultural institutions of being based in knowledge and research, and being places where people can actually meet each other and meet the original artworks. That's still very powerful. But today it's more important than ever to merge that with the expectations for digitality and experience that the digital transformation that society has brought about. That's it.
Yeah, Merete, thank you so much. If I might jump in now, I like, first of all, thank you so much for this really inspiring and insightful presentation. I have so many questions that I feel we could discuss that for like 2 hours maybe, or even more. So first of all, I would like to invite our audience to use the Q&A box to ask questions, because the Q&A session is now open. And while we are waiting for the questions from the audience, I actually have I have super like many questions, but like there's one that I would like to start with, which is, you've mentioned something that I think is very important, that institutions become facilitators. And you also provided us with examples showing how this actually works. And you have shown us the impact of that work. So I wanted to ask you, do you also think there is a whole new skill set needed for that type of work? And if so, how would you define this skill set? Because this is a completely new and different role for the institution.
I think absolutely we need to really change the profiling of people working in museums today. And as I said, it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because there's still a huge demand and need in this information overload society that we all inhabit for good curation and trustworthy curation. But the open mindset that I talked about at the beginning is, for me, a basic skill that anyone working in the cultural sector today needs. Because we are surrounded by a society full of people who expect to be able to take part in a dialogue and not just have one-way communication. They are used to critical thinking, asking questions, demanding serious replies. And so this is a basic skill. Other than that, of course, I also think that technological capacity building is key to embrace the possibilities of being present in people's lives in other ways than in your physical institution. So there's a potential there if you really want to reap that. You need to have people in your organization that actually know hands-on what these technologies can do and know how to implement them where they matter. Because it's not, as I tried to also say in my talk, it's not about just having apps and screens all over the place that can actually stand in the way of what you want to achieve, and the kind of relationship you want to build with your audiences. But I think that, for instance, Wikipedia is an example of how through that community we are reaching people in huge numbers, people who never heard of SMK, who never maybe were interested in art. They can encounter artworks from our collection for the very first time, maybe through Wikipedia.
Yeah, thanks. I think you're so right. And I also think that there's another important aspect to that. So you also mentioned this experience economy and how who actually our audiences are and what they are used to. And I remember someday the Metropolitan Museum of Art chief digital officer once said that actually as museums in the digital ecosystem, we are actually competing with Netflix.
Yeah.
We're not just competing with other museums. You're not competing with the Louvre or Prado or whatever.
Yeah.
But obviously we are not commercial institutions. We are not we don't have big budget for technologies. So how do you think with what we can actually compete? So what are our main assets in this competition for our audience's attention?
Yeah, I see that as of course that's heavy competition with the likes of Netflix and YouTube, etc. But I think museums and cultural institutions have authentic experiences to offer at the intersection of our shared history and our personal histories. And if we can help people in meeting themselves through the summary of other people's creativity and imagination that are kept in our collections, if we can open that up as a storytelling of people who came before us or are living right now who want to speak to us through art, then we have something very unique to offer. And also a thing that I like to stress is that in this day and age where we see so much false information floating around the internet, being a knowledge institution based in research and based in trustworthy data is also a very important asset. And that's another argument for opening up our data, because if it's behind paywalls and restriction systems, a lot of people who actually need to have to find information they can trust, they won't find it. It won't be available on the internet. So we actually should flood the internet with our trustworthy, validized information as a counterstrike to the misinformation on the internet.
I just wanted to bomb a little bit your presentation, because I wanted to add one line. I want to thank you enormously for this presentation, because it made me realize one thing that I think is an obvious thing for you, obviously, but I think it's not that obvious for many of us. It wasn't for me. And I have a background in art history, and I just realized that what you do in the way you use technology and digital tools is that you are helping people to discover the experience of art the way it was, I would say, thought or designed by the painters back in the days when they were actually working on their canvases, because what these paintings were doing, they were experiences in which the society was able to meet and discuss things that were the most important topics of their times. Sometimes they were hidden, sometimes they were very much exposed, sometimes they were very emotional, but they were these small areas where everybody could meet and discuss things that were crucial. And I think that thanks to the projects that you've shown to us, and I really want to say how much I appreciate that you shared this experience, because it shows that you are bringing the society together with the art piece, and the way you help it become more accessible and less of a collection object. It's again becomes a live sort of experience through art. So thank you very much for that. That was something I understood deeply when you were presenting your projects. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate that, and also how much it resembles certain things that were discussed yesterday by our experts from the performing arts sector, who emphasized on how much the community and the society and the common experience being together, the togetherness of the experience, how much is it important for everyone who comes into the venue that offers this experience. So thank you, Tak, and
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Merete.